Mr. Dollins, are we ready to doze?
Yes, we are ready to doze. We are ready to doze. Guys, this is the Diesel Daddy podcast, and this is take 3 on our podcast talking about resilience and failure, which I've done miserably this week with the podcast. So we are 4 days late releasing an episode because I just could not get my shit together. But great topics that we're talking about, and resilience and failure are, one is needed and one is always going to happen to you in life. Failure is inevitable. Without failure, there's no success. Mm-hmm. Without resilience, you can never succeed, and you have to have resilience through failure. We were just talking about 30 seconds ago about your business adventure and the grow that your cannabis grow that you had started with, and dive right back into that story real quick because it's a great story altogether. So,
absolutely. What is going on, everybody? This is Joshua Long, Diesel Daddy Long, Jay Resla here on the mic, ready to bring a hot episode tonight, number 20. This is the 20th episode, and we are hyped.
Let's go.
I can't say thank you so much. I can't say it enough to say thank you that we really appreciate all of our viewers coming on, resonating and vibrating on the same frequency as we are, because let me tell you that if you are here and hearing us right now in this point in time, understand that you would not be here observing, listening, and hearing if you did not resonate at the similar or same frequency as the information that we're putting out there. And tonight, we're talking about failure. And really, it's a talk about success. Because in the pathway of success, the patterns of failure are absolutely part of the experience. And they're almost like stepping stones in a ladder to arrive at the level you wish to be at. And so what we were talking about is just kind of sharing a little background story of myself and just kind of to give some example of how mindset and failure go hand in hand. When I started out my working career, my management career was about 15 years ago at a Mexican restaurant here in Oklahoma called Ted's. Big fan. I'm sure anybody that lives anywhere near knows what that restaurant is.
Everybody knows Ted's. It's Mexican magic, baby.
Yeah. And then after Ted's, I did a 10-year management stretch there, opened up tons of restaurants. I loved it. Was the big dog, general manager, made a ton of money, had a lot of friends, had a nice place, nice car, all that stuff. But about 5 years prior to me exiting the restaurant industry, I'd gone through my spiritual awakening, which I think a lot of people are starting to have their spiritual awakenings and are kind of starting to tune into this understanding of what is a spiritual awakening or realization. What does it mean to raise the vibrational frequency of my body and my experience? And what does it mean to get into the 0 point? Because all of these things have played an absolute vital role in my success through these failures. And so, just to notate that I'd really never done anything outside of the restaurant as a work career. It's always been restaurant industry, and I knew that industry inside and out. But now that I had gotten into my spiritual awakening, I was about 3 or 4 years into this and really starting to comprehend and understand singularity and oneness and quantum manifestation and how to produce better outcomes through cultivating the vibrational frequency within. And I knew that I was at a point, I had connected with my higher self, which is another podcast that we're going to get into. And so make sure to tune into that one, because realizing and understanding what your higher self is and how to connect and how to gain guidance through that source of information was a vital teammate that I have on my team, on my roster, that is able to help me move through these failures by giving me guidance and giving me the right mindset to be able to do so. And so I'd stepped out into the unknown, which is like step one of your spiritual awakening is, getting out from the...
So like to that right there, was your a spiritual awakening of what you were experiencing emotionally, was that a big driver into you stepping out and creating your own business?
Yeah, so, really what had struck me is that I had realized that my purpose was to not be stuck in a 4-wall box every day, all day, every day, right? Running the race 80 hours a week, flipping burritos and dropping chimichangas, right? I knew that there was a grander purpose, and that purpose for me was to get this information out there. And, part of that process was understanding how to gain financial freedom, right? And so these things were processing through my mind as I knew that I loved what I did and I loved the people I worked with, but I knew that there was grander things out there for my purpose. And I knew that really take the freedom of monetary value and a freedom to be able to move around the planet and do all those things. And so I had first learned how to calm my mind, how to silence that little voice, how to connect in the 0 point. And then I knew how to align my vibration through my attention, through my studies, through my actions to fully embody and learn this new venture that I was about to step into the unknown, which was the cannabis industry. After have never growing anything in my entire life, I was going to build a 10,000 square foot grow facility. I was going to grow a 10,000 square foot cannabis cultivation facility after not having grown anything in my entire life. And so this was the complete unknown. And we'll get into some other podcasts with some of my dear friends that got to view and watch from the outside of me do these things. Because, a lot of people are like, yeah, right, whatever, Josh. You're not going to be able to do that. You've never done that before. You have all these things outside of you that are projecting towards you that might be telling you, you can't do it. But there are also the ones out there that were in full support. Right? Like my father, for example, who was my business partner, who brought in the first $100,000. He was a very supportive role in the beginning, but then through the transition of losing a ton of money, you could see his mindset shift because it got into a scarcity, it got into a survival, it got into a limited resource type of mental capacity. And so all of these things along the way are things that I had to come up against mentally.
Yeah, you were telling me on the second recording of this episode that you had your father initially invested $100,000 for that you thought you were buying a fully operational grow business. I'm assuming it was already licensed and stuff, and all that money basically just went to waste, and you end up with only essentially just the equipment. So how much? Like from $100,000, was that like way more than what the equipment was actually worth?
Yeah, unfortunately, we were buying blue sky at that point in time, but it was a running, operating grow, and so they already had pipelines, and they already had sales, and they already had a momentum going. And this is before I could place my eyes on a grow and go, yeah, that's it, or no, that's not it, right? And so we had bought it, and then very shortly later, we had found out that the zoning regulations changed, and we could no longer grow there, which was really kind of ass backwards because although I couldn't grow there, in silence and undercover where nobody knew that I was a grow, I could put a big old marijuana weed leaf sign out, and I could run a dispensary there. Made no sense at all, but that's the game of the cannabis industry in here in Oklahoma. Makes no sense at all. You just got to ride by the seat of your pants and hope that you're doing all the things you're supposed to.
So how long after you invested that $100,000 did you realize that it was obsolete of what you bought?
Probably within 2 to 3 months. Yeah, and so I had to immediately, because there's no time to waste. I've quit my job. And I'm now, got
family money involved.
Right? And so, okay, I need more money. I need a bigger business plan. I need more money. I need a space. I need to be able to put the right team together because it was really still just me at that time. Now I had Jordan Guy, who's one of my best friends. He had introduced me to a gentleman. It was actually, we had all got introduced like a year or two back at a Christmas party to a guy named Scott Schwegler, who ended up being one of my dearest friends, a brother to me, and an absolute incredible human being who was an organic grower. He grew organically. He literally top-fed, tea-dressed, and water only, which is a very difficult process to grow if you've got no experience. Even the best growers in the world don't know how to grow organically because it's tricky, right? They can grow with salts and stuff like that, but I pulled together this team, Scott, Jordan, and myself at the time, and I had found this perfect building, which I'd almost slept through and passed on the walkthrough, but thank God I woke up and I was able to make it there. It was the very last one after 50 buildings.
I literally almost slept through it.
I literally almost slept through it. Yeah, I got too high.
Yeah.
And so I got there and I was like, dude, this is the building. I found the building. And so we found the building. we got with my dad. We had started the construction process. My dad was still putting money in at this time, and we had to buy all brand new equipment. Now were approached by some other really good friends of our family that we grew up with, and my dad's known forever, and our families have known each other forever, and they wanted to get in on this deal. And at first we were like, no, we can't. We're going to do this on our own. We're just going to make it happen. But they were very persuasive, and they were bringing more money to the table. Now, they had invested a ton of money. It was like $350,000. But part of it, they wanted to also do an outdoor grow on their land in Bristow. Okay, you don't know about this, Nick.
Okay.
And so through me alone, one person, organizing all of this, never grown anything in my life, now don't just have a 10,000 square foot facility to build, but I also have a 1,800 pot outdoor farm.
1,800 plants?
1,800 plants to clear, build, set up, organize a team, irrigation, everything, and launch that simultaneously at the same time. I'm building out by hand this indoor 10,000 square foot facility, okay? And so, like, the grace of creator source energy that I had ran into one night, a buddy of mine, and I was like, hey, I'm looking for an outdoor grower. I need one. I need a team right now. I'm ready to go. I've got the money, the support. And I had ran into an individual. We'll leave names behind us. But he was on board. It was him and had like 2 or 3 other guys. And I was like, all right. I was like, I interviewed him. I really hammered him because I knew my information. I was savvy enough information-wise to be able to depict who's bullshitting me and who's not. And now if you're good enough to bullshit me going by the seat of your pants, well, then you're on the same ride I am. So
yeah,
we can go. But, so we had to clear out. It was trees. You couldn't even drive a four-wheeler through it. We had to clear out, like, I don't even know how many acres. I mean, the pots the holes in the ground were at least that big. There were probably 3x3 holes and about 5 feet deep.
You had to do 1,800 of them?
1,800 of them. And then we had to backfill all of those holes with cocoa perlite and our soil mix, our live soil mix. And mind you, I've got an empty warehouse that I'm putting blueprints together, because in the city of Tulsa, you got the permitting process, you got the blueprints, you got the engineers letters for CO2, and you got to go through all your inspections. And so I'm the guy drawing up all the blueprints. I did it on Excel. When I took this blueprint to the city, they were like, how in the hell did you do this? I was like, I did it on Excel. They were like, you did it on what?
I didn't even know you could do blueprints on Excel.
Well, I did. All right. And I had these blueprints with everything that they needed on there. And so they accepted them. Right. And so I had to go through that whole process. Well, what we thought we were doing in the beginning, which is walking into an already operating grow, I'm now in a year's process of building out both an indoor and an outdoor grow, driving back and forth 7 days a week, never stopping from 6 a.m. until 10 p.m. at night. I mean, there was no stopping. And in the middle of the heat of the summer, just out there dying. And then when I'm done dying, I'm going to my indoor facility because I can light it up at nighttime and I can keep building all the walls. I can do all the framing, run the electric, set up all the stuff, right? And I had found, like I said, this incredible individual, Scott Schwegler, who was a fantastic grower. And so just kind of fast forward through all of the building and all of the setting up. And like, man, we went through it. We went through locust. And so I've got locust outside eating the plants. And so now for 1,800 plants, I have to build some type of hoop tent on these runs that are running like 75 yards, right? So imagine a 10-foot wide by 75-yard hoop tent that we made out of, we got like 14-foot rebar, and we're driving them down as the post, and then we got blue like screen net that we just zip tied, and like we just makeshifted it the best we could. And now there was about 30 rows of these.
How much land does 1,800 plants like cover?
I mean, you can't see. Probably from here to Clyde, no, farther than Clyde's, probably here to Pruitt. which
about
is
3/4 of a mile.
3/4 of a mile. Yeah, I mean it was massive, dude, massive, and it was 75 yards across, and then there was about probably, I might be exaggerating on 30, maybe 25 rows, 22 rows, but again 10-foot wide, 2 plants side by side, and then it was plants all the way down, so you could walk down the middle of the plants, and and we had to do that, right? And just so that way because our plants the plants we were putting in the ground were getting eaten up by the locusts.
Those locusts getting high as hell.
Yeah, and simultaneously building out the indoor. So we were somewhere with the outdoor in motion, and we got plants in the ground, and we got the hoop tents up. I mean, it was really miraculous that we even got that far, and there was a little bit of, some people sabotaging some things out there that weren't very happy with what we were doing. And so that
on the outside grow.
Yeah, so they invested $250,000 in that, and that was, we got nothing out of it.
So the people who wanted the outside grow invested that, and they didn't get anything out of it.
Nothing out of it.
Like no produce,
nothing,
no product at all.
Nothing. So that's another two. So we're $350,000 in with nothing. Okay. Yeah.
Resilience.
Now they had also invested money into ours, and it's it's funny looking back, right? We can laugh about it. At the time though, it was not.
At the
funny.
time, it's life crushing.
And imagine two really good friendly families in that situation. It can it gets a little rough, right? But we're all adults. We were all loving, God-fearing men, right? I don't really fear God. I love God because God loves me and I'm made of him. But
I understand what you mean, though.
Yeah. Understanding that, moving through all that stuff was definitely a massive.
Rufus. That's the podcast dog. He's out. Show him up for the camera real quick. Look at that pup. That old Roofy doof.
All right.
Resilience with Rufus. Bark for the fans, dog.
He's like, I don't want to be on camera. Okay, so we were the outdoor grow just fell flat on its face basically, and so we got the indoor also simultaneously. We got our big room built out. We had one massive room. It was a 36 liter room. It was like 1,000 square feet for the room. I think it was big, massive HVAC, dehume, the lights, the whole deal. Really, 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 really cool. And then we had a second room that wasn't really developed yet, but I was building the rooms out myself one by one. And then Scott had started the growing procedure basically in the big room. And so we got through the first harvest and it was absolutely beautiful. And it was the first massive win along our journey, which we were already about a year and 3 months into.
It took you a year and 3 months to produce your first product that was sellable to start producing income.
Exactly.
1 full year of nothing but pouring money into it.
Yeah, we were probably about $450,000 in at that point in time.
Golly, so I mean that's tough. So like even with any other business, there's always some type of income coming in. I mean, how did you find the strength to just keep going for a whole year without producing anything? Because that's a lot to just weigh on your mind on a day-to-day basis. Pressure from all investors coming in all the time. So what was that like, experiencing that type of runway before you were able to produce any money at all?
Yeah, so my training, man, my personal development, my spiritual awakening, it was every night I was meditating, closing my mind down, envisioning this magnificent company. I've always got this big vision, like I'm at this massive banquet, right? And I'm sitting there and watching all of my friends go up one by one and give these just absolutely incredible, beautiful speeches about their life and how much they love the journey and like how much they love me and just all the great things that I had accomplished and that we had accomplished as a company. And then I see my father going up there as the last one. And, I've gotten to see my father give speeches about me and, about my sister and our family many times. And there's just a certain special loving energy that comes from him in those times. And so, I was really cultivating loving high frequency vibrations in the morning and in the night. And then I'd wake up and I would have to move through these, what seemed to be real situations of losing hundreds of thousands of dollars, which is the experience in that moment, is the lessons, right? But through my development, my training, and these things, these trainings that I'm talking about is what we're going over in a lot of our podcasts, right? And it's these trainings and these practices that helped me along the way not get stuck in a mental rut or circular thought process of down talking and, oh, you can't do this, and oh, we're screwed, and oh, you've already spent this much money. And that never once during the entire way did I ever have a thought of quit. Did I ever have a thought of I can't do this? You know, one of my favorite mantras, and I literally said this mantra over and over and over all day long for every day for that year and a half. I have everything. I am not these thoughts. I am not this mind. I am not this body. I am the awareness that is. I am one with all that is. And I have everything necessary along the way of the process. Everything will be provided as it needs to be, in the amount that it needs to be, in an overflowing manner. And this mantra that I had to repeat. And now if a negative thought did come in, I would just tell myself, I'm sorry, please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. I'm saying this internally to myself. And then I would repeat my mantra. I have everything necessary along the way of the process. Everything is perfect as it is right now. And so there was a lot of mantra practice, a lot of happened to still my mind on a daily basis, right? And so we get into this first harvest finally. We're over 400 grand in. We're over a year and 3 months when we thought we were walking into an already operating grow. And it was the most beautiful harvest that I'd ever seen. It was just absolutely incredible. The flower was beautiful. It was frosty. It tested high. It was organic. I mean, it was just absolutely home run out of this park. And we get it all trimmed. I've got pictures and everything. We're all smiling and laughing, throwing marijuana up in the air. And I got 20 trim guys trimming all the weed. And we start to get it into market. And this is right around Christmas time that year. And Christmas Eve rolls around, and Scott was coming to the grow to check on the flowers and had a seizure in his car. And he was ejected from his car as he was getting on the highway and essentially ran his car off the side of an on-ramp that was coming on. So he came off of it. And he wrecked his car, was ejected, and drowned in 3 inches of water. Jeez. And so I got a call on Christmas Eve. I'm at the grow. Jordan, who is our third wheel, bawling because Jordan and Scott grew up together. They had grown up together, and so Jordan's calling, crying, bawling. Josh, Scott's dead, and I'm like, it just kind of hit me. I'm like, all right, and I had a choice in that point in time. I love Scott to death. I believe Scott's spirit lives on with us. He's in a much more beautiful realm, and I believe that as soon as Scott's ready to reincarnate, he'll be there in the 4th density planet where we'll all be at. And so I had 2 choices. I could give up and throw my hat in. I had no grower. I didn't. I was still green as fuck. I didn't. I'm a fast learner. I can learn anything on the fly. And I knew the process, and I was like, okay, I know the rhythm. We got to up pot. We got to get them in. We got to water them in. We got to put the temperature here. I was very fortunate at that time that I was always really good to people, and I made a lot of friends along the way. And I had another beautiful individual who's a mentor in the cannabis industry to me, Big Rob. And he was able to come in and give me consultation and help me walk through the process and just kind of teach me the rhythm of everything. Now, we switched from the fully organic to partial organic because it was too difficult to do the fully organic. And so not only did I lose my grower, but we were going to completely change the method of the way that we grew in that moment. Yeah. All right.
How do you, there's one thing to have, business setback and business failure from, money and prolonged sustaining no money coming in before you have any product and stuff like that. How were you, I know how from your meditation and stuff, but how was that from anybody else who might be going through the same thing of dealing with a personal loss, no matter what that be, a divorce or loss of a friend like you did, dealing with that and still having the resilience to push through that, because even a personal failure unrelated to business can be a roadblock that can devastate your whole life, you know, and still being able to maintain that positive mindset through such a serious personal loss. You know, how was that for you, and how would you walk through someone else experiencing that same thing right now?
Yeah, well, you know, there's two sides of that coin. The one side that I think a majority of people experience is it's such a devastating blow that it shifts everything in their life, and they're not able to continue on with the things that they have in momentum. They fall mentally first, right, because it's something they love and they feel that they lost something, right, and then they fail on the energetic urge to keep moving on because, well, I don't know how to do it, so I guess I just quit. Or they just, what seems to be a dead end wall sitting in front of you, most people look at that wall and look up and go, man, I don't know if I can climb that. Right now, for me, again, and what we talk about in these realizations and these spiritual awakenings, right, and really falling back into oneness and unity, the whole idea of death prior to this experience had already shifted in my mindset. Okay, when someone dies, you're not dying. Nobody dies. It's impossible to die. Okay, it's energy here. Energy cannot be created nor destroyed. It can only be changed, transmuted, or shifted into a different energy. And so our awareness that we have right now in this moment, to be aware of myself in a room with Nick on his podcast and going, right, that awareness, when the body decides that it's done, that awareness is still here, right? And so there is no death, right? And actually, it's actually a beautiful thing because we're all here on a team. We're all here made of the same beautiful source energy. And we're all here to have the same purpose and objective, which is to move forward in our spiritual journey, in our vibrational frequency, in our life experiences. And so, you know, I was also already connected with my higher self and spiritual beings, angels, extraterrestrials, right? We get into some podcasts about that stuff if you're interested. And so I knew in that moment that although Scott was dead, I had two options. I could just fold, or I could just keep moving on. And
you had to believe quite a bit in the business that you were doing, because being as far as you were in the business with the money that you were out, I mean, that's a really good reason to quit. That, you know what I mean? That everybody would understand, like, it's time to fold up. Like, I'm sure everybody would be on the same page too. Investors, all the employees would be like, all right, guys, you know, this is a sign from the universe to close shop. But that's not what you did. You re-rallied and went right back into the fucking oven.
Yeah, you know what's so funny about that is maybe that was the universe saying, hey, Josh, it's time to fold up. Even though you're in the unknown, this isn't the unknown we want you to be in. And that was a lesson that I learned through all that. But what was so great about the experiences is for me to be able to look back and realize those things. Right? And there eventually came a time, but it wasn't then. I doubled down, and I doubled down. I got the mentor in there. We got all the plants. Jordan quit his job, which was also managing at Ted's, making great money, to hop into this mess that we were all in. And I'll tell you, the biggest success out of all of that I had was the success of a loyal team. I can't tell you the importance of what it means to have loving, loyal, unwavering support around you in the individuals you choose to work with, conversate with, live life with, and experience these tremendous lessons with.
Yeah, I mean, that goes into just the self-discipline you were talking about at the beginning of your story about how you're in meditative state and stuff. The people that you surround yourself with are going to be a direct reflection of the business ventures that you go on. You can't recruit high-level people in any manner if you're not a high-level person yourself. So the work that goes into you becoming the best version of yourself and then recruiting the right team is just so important. Completely agree with that.
Mm-hmm. And, it's funny today I heard something, it was like on a reel or something, but he was talking about how the most money he ever made was being the number 2 man and the number 6 man, and how confused everybody is with always wanting to be the number 1 man, but the burden that falls on that number 1 man in making sure you're making payroll and that you always have the finances covered and that, all the legalities are traced and that everything's dotted and crossed and perfect, and those were the lessons really that I learned through that is, I just took the charge, I took the lead and just threw it all on my back and kept moving through it. But Jordan quit his job, he joined us, and we were full force. We had Rob, who was a fantastic mentor, grower, been doing this for over 10 years. And we started to catch a little bit of a roll. And mind you, at this time, the outdoor grow was completely flat done. All right. And I had to let that team go. We had lost probably $240,000 to $300,000 on that. That was gone. And so had we gone back to them, the investors that had put that money, they now put more money into us. My dad had been just shoveling money into this thing. During that time, so Scott had passed, we went into our first winter, and we had realized that there wasn't enough insulation on the roof, between the top of the ceiling and the roof, for the humidity purposes of the room. And so what happened is basically the rooms turned into a tropical forest and started raining. Now, if you could imagine in this room right now, it being so humid that it's raining on us.
Yeah, like the drops accumulate and come down.
Yeah, but not just drops, bro. I'm talking full faucet tropical rain.
Oh, my God.
Okay? All over the plants. All over the plants.
How is that bad for the plants?
Well, you don't know what, maybe there's rust, maybe there's whatever on the ceilings and all that stuff, trying to let the plants dry back, but it keeps raining on them, water, the humidity level shot to like 95% humidity in the room. You want to run high humidity, but not 95%. You want to run maybe like 70%, in the beginning. There's different stages. You have higher humidity in the beginning and you have lower humidity in the end. And same thing with temperature. Once the humidity swings, well, then the temperature, the HVAC has a hard time because it's in the room. The handler is. And so all of a sudden now your HVAC can't keep your temperature down. So now you're at 95% humidity and you're tapping 90 degrees. Plants will die within 4 days at that rate.
Oh, God.
And so your whole room, your whole crop, and you're talking when you start a flowering, just the flowering cycle. It's not the clones, the veg, the moms, the teens, all that stuff. Just the flowering. When we get in the room to flower it, it's 9 weeks. And so you get to week 6 or 7, and then you have an issue like this, and it doms your whole room. Well, now you got to start back over. You just wasted 2 months.
Golly.
And it's going to be 3 months before the next one's ready.
Tell everybody how much a month it costs to keep a facility up and going.
$25,000 a month. Just
that's
to stand.
$75,000 just standing, not producing anything.
That's just to stand. Now, that was $25,000 for the whole facility. So we had 2 rooms at that point in time. So you're probably about $12,000 a room. But still, that's insane.
That's a lot of money.
That's a lot of money. And so
with no money coming in.
So we had to move. I had to move all plants by hand, right? And Jordan was still like in his 2-week notice at this period. So I still didn't even really have him. I was by myself. So I've now got to move like 300 plants by hand into my big room where I already had 400 plants in there. And I'm just shoving them in there because I'm trying to clear the room so I can get a spray foam guy. We're going to get a spray foam guy in there and spray foam the ceiling to get that extra insulation up there. Which ended up turning out to be a mess later because we had to go back and paint it, this fire retardant stuff that the fire marshal was like, yeah, that's not acceptable, and if you don't get that fixed, we're going to have to shut you down. And so, yeah. I mean, dude.
What a road of resilience and constant setbacks.
Anything and everything you could imagine as a road bump or a hiccup or something going wrong, from people dying to rooms all of a sudden raining on you. There was one time that we caught infestation from mites, which could ruin your whole facility, and you're talking could it completely shut you down. There was one time that we had plants herm on us, so they turned into males, started busting pollen in the room, which can turn all of your female plants into males. It ruins your crop. Having to get those out, right? Anything and everything you could think of to experience, we experienced. And so I had to keep going, though. I had to keep building. I had to keep these plants going. I had a vision. There was no other choice. I had no choice. I've already consumed probably $500,000 at this time. I mean, and it's ticking. You know, half a year goes by, you're another 120 grand into that thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so we finally started getting harvests. The first 2 or 3 harvests after Scott's death were shit. We didn't make nothing off of it. We pretty much had to scrap them because the plants were dead, dying, not good. But once we got everything situated with the rooms and we learned the process and we started getting everything in motion, over that next year and a half, okay, imagine the money still churning. That next year and a half, we had built out the facility to 4 operating rooms. We had 2 flower rooms, 2 veg rooms. We were harvesting every 4.5 weeks, and we had about 3,000 plants in the pipeline. We were hand watering all 3,000 plants every single day, me and one other guy.
Golly.
Well, we had Cody on at this time too, so it was me, Cody, and Jordan. But Cody was still like part-time because he still had his job because I couldn't pay him that much because I was barely making any pay for me because I had to make sure that I paid Jordan, because he has boys and a family and a wife. It was just me and my dogs, which was, if you're going into a massive business venture and you're walking into the unknown, you need to have your priorities and your assets, and you need to have your life organized, prepared to be away from all of that. Mm-hmm. And so, Jordan was able to do it because I was a guy that could be there no matter what. And then Jordan was there 7 days a week with me, but he was still able to accommodate his family and still be able to do those things. But if it would have just been me and I had a full family, there's no way I could have done it. Mm-hmm. No way I could have done it. And so we started harvesting. Now, mind you, not only are we doing 3,000 plants and we're up potting, we're defoliing. I had like 5 rows in my big room. And when we went to defol, you had to defol like 2 to 3 times per 9-week cycle. It would take me an entire day from the start of the day to the end of the day to do 1 row. I had 5 rows. We had 2 rooms, 10 rows. Now, if anybody that grows knows that when you defol, you need the whole room defolied at the same time. And so, luckily I had some friends that I had met that I could hire to bring on. But even still, it would take us 2, 3, 4 days to get 1 room done. And then you're moving to the next room to do it because it's coming up behind it. Mm-hmm. And then, you got harvest. You got to harvest 400 plants, and like there's just, again, anybody that's in the cannabis industry is sitting there just rolling tickled pink because they know, they fucking know the ride that it takes. If you're a cannabis cultivator and grower, an actual one that like is in charge and is doing it all, hats off to you. You're a fucking soldier. Mm-hmm. And it can prepare you for anything in life, guaranteed. I'd get someone in there and be like, all right, we got 400 plants to up pot, which basically means I got to take 3-gallon bags. I need to go get all the soil for it. And then I need to use we made this little plunger thing to put down in there. So when we're putting soil, it had a hole and we could just drop the teen in the hole. But 400 pots, dude, and you're bent over, staring down at the concrete, and you're just scooping fucking soil, dude. It would take 3 guys, 4 guys all day long just to do 400 plants. And we had 2 rooms. That was just 1 room. But needless to say, we got to a point where we were producing really good flower, but the market at that point in time, then when we first sold our first pound with Scott, we sold it for about $3,200. Mm-hmm. And then by the time we got to where we were actually harvesting and going, the price had dropped down to about $1,200. And then by the time we were at the harvesting every 4.5 weeks, the price dropped down to about $600 a pound.
So at that point, how much, if you were able to harvest both rooms at full capacity, how much money would be produced? Like, how many pounds would you be able to sell? Yeah, so we were still like, probably on the amateur side of producing large yields for, per light. We were getting about 1.5 pounds at that point in time at light. Now I can do it and I can get 2.5 pounds easy a light because I understand how to do it now correctly. We didn't have the right lights. We didn't have the right setup, all that stuff matters. But, at that point in time at 600
$600 a pound. Let me grab my calculator. You know, we had 36 lights. Just say that we did 36 times 1.5. So 36 times 1.5. So we was putting about somewhere between 40 and 55 pounds on the big room. Now, that times 600 is $32,000, yes, okay? But then the next part is I had to get out after doing all of that work, and I had to go door to 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 try to sell this product. Now, mind you, they're in California, Oregon, and Colorado combined, they have a total of about 2,000 to 2,500 grows. Oklahoma alone had 12,800.
Yeah. So how many? I mean, if you know this, how many were growing when you first started, as opposed to when you guys sold?
12,900 when we started, and about 10,800 when we sold.
So it went down. So people are already going out of business.
Yeah. People were definitely going out of business because you just couldn't keep up. There was massive players that were dropping their pounds down to like $200-300 a pound just to flood out the market. And what we ran into is like, you know, I mean, the dispensary people, they'd just run.
Well, it's great for them because they're just getting cheaper product.
Well, it was and it wasn't, because they all pissed themselves down to the bottom. You know, well, you know, they're selling their grams for 10, so we're going to sell ours for 7. So we only, you know, want to pay.
It's a race to the bottom.
It's a race to the bottom is what happened, and it ended up really fucking everybody. Now, there are people that were in the beginning that are still in it and are making a ton of money, you know, and got a good plan. Not saying that's for everybody, but for a large majority of the market it was. And so it was just not physically possible at that point in time. When we got to that point in time, we were now about $750,000, $800,000 in on the project. And, you know, and I look back at it, and it's funny because it's like, you know, if I just had 6 more months of financial support, we were at that point. We were ready to brand and to launch, and we had made a good name for ourselves, and we had the product rolling, but we were just tapped, you know, and so we closed it down and we gave it away for the debt note. We made no money on it. We lost all of the money, but we fortunately were able to get out without carrying a $200,000+ debt note. And
how long did the venture take from start to finish, from like when you quit Ted's?
3.5 years.
3.5 years.
3.5 years.
So, you know, what a ride.
Yeah.
What a ride. What can you say are some like lessons that you learned for yourself from, you know, not giving up and being resilient through that failure, through a long sustained failure, you know, for lack of a better word, you know, from anybody who's going through any type of business or work or trying to get promoted or anything is experiencing setbacks, which are inevitable. You know, if you're not experiencing any type of setback or anything at all, you're probably not doing anything of value at all. So what do you think you learned from that entire process, and how is it helping you today?
Yeah, you know, it's so funny because that's really a multifaceted answer from a multifaceted question. It really, you know, it's funny. I walked out of there with nothing, essentially, right? Except for
the experience.
So much joy and happiness, and so much.
See, that's interesting because that was not the answer I was expecting to hear from you. Because anybody who's stepping away from a huge failure is usually bittersweet, depressed, feeling like a failure, and to say that you walk away from joy. So dive into that. Why that emotion specifically was your top of mind? Because
I knew that everything as it was perfect. You know, I had finally given up the mental attachment to labeling everything. Oh, well, this is happening because of this, and oh, well, they're just pieces of shits because they won't do this, and oh, it's his fault, and you know, they get into the blame game, and whether they're blaming themselves or they're blaming someone else, or they're angry at someone else, or they're depressed with themselves, right? They're just in this mental construct of creating vibrational patterns. Okay. Now, what I had learned prior to going into this, and I was prepared for mentally while I was going through this, is that no matter what happens to me or what situation takes place, it's simply an illusion. It's a holographic illusion. That's what this this realm, this world is a holographic illusion, and that's something we get into other podcasts, but follow with me. And what I knew is that no matter what happened to me, because I cannot control what happens. I could not control that we lost that much money. We fired on all cylinders. It was beautiful product. It was no one individual's fault of why. It was just simply the unfolding of how the universe wanted us to roll, and it did not want us to be in that business. Now, we made a lot of friends and a lot of good connections, and I learned a lot of lessons, but what I knew and understood is it was about how I perceived what was going on. Mm-hmm. And so, and during those tough times, towards the end, being in a room alone with my father while he's bawling and I'm bawling, and to hear the conversations and words that come out of his mouth, which is, a conversation that was had between him and I. But you could, in context, imagine the most possible worst ideas of how life could turn in that moment because of the loss of money and because of the loss of stability.
Oh, yeah. I mean, people attach money to their own self-worth, and if you lose a ton of money in a sustained amount of time, at the end of that, you can walk away feeling completely worthless. And I think that's the question I was getting at you right there, because from my own personal failures in business, that's how I felt, from losing things. Like I feel worthless, and not even that I felt I mean, I felt like an inevitable feeling of like I just lost everything. You just very depressive state of mind. And to hear you say you felt a lot of joy from the experience,
Well, because after the experience, it was joyful, because through the experience was the work, right? And when I talk about work, I'm talking about the mental work, right? And so having those conversations with my dad, although he's saying one thing, in my mind, I'm going, this is just a hologram. This is not my truth. This is not my hologram. I am sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. And then in my mind, I just see him and I laughing and holding each other and fishing together. And although we're in a four-walled white room with a concrete floor, and we're talking about some pretty horrific things that we could do to ourselves, in my mind at that time, simultaneously, I am overriding with my imagery inside my mind with beautiful words, beautiful conversations, beautiful outcomes between my father and I in the business, and what if it's in that business or another one, right? And I held no expectation to outcome. And so there's other times, I can't sit here and say that I didn't have that voice come in my head and just start down talking me and create negativity about the people around me and the situations that were going on. But what I would do is I'd set a timer for 6 times a day, or started out at 3 times a day. It was just a 5-minute timer, and that timer would go off, and I would just stop everything I'm doing. I would just close my eyes, and I'd just breathe real deep, nice and slow, and I would just bring my mind to my breath, and I would just, again, I would cultivate the vibrational frequency of having already been successful, having already achieved a absolute thriving business in the cannabis industry, right? There was all these practices and all these mental things that I was doing along the way, right? And all the time I knew that no matter what happened, it's happening for a purpose, it's happening in imperfection, and it's not about what happens to me, but it's about how I perceive it. And so I was able to continue growing, and you can ask any one of my friends that were around at that time. I couldn't believe it, because, Josh would disappear for 3 months. Imagine just staring at a plant for 100 hours a week in a room by yourself. Because although Jordan was with me, Jordan was in the other room by himself with the plants. And I was in this room by myself with the plants, sitting there clipping thousands and thousands and thousands of leaves over and over and over. But let me tell you, I learned so much about life watching those plants, and I learned how to pour love into those plants, and I learned how to connect with those plants, and I learned, how an environment is so vital in your expression as a plant, because we and plants are the same thing, right? We're all a part of the same thing, and we react. Our environment affects how we express ourselves. And so through these hard times, most people would then allow that to affect them in a way that they emotionally react, and then they're going to express in that manner. But for me, I had done the training, I had done the work. I knew that when these things happened to me, if I was emotionally triggered, just to sit there in silence until that feeling left. And then once that feeling left, I was able then to reformulate that experience, the picture, and I was able to continue moving on. And so when I left, when we got out of there, it was just complete happiness and joy. And I say that in a couple different manners. It was complete happiness and joy because the strength and love of my father's and I's relationship was stronger and in more love than any time ever in our lives. Mm-hmm. You know, the people that I had around me that I love most, Jordan and my friends and Michael and Dustin and everybody, they were still there in full support and loving. They didn't talk shit and they didn't say you can't do it. No, they were just like, Josh, well, you just have no idea how you pulled that off. Because although we gave it away, we built a beautiful cultivation facility, commercial, harvesting every 4.5 weeks with absolute fire product. Mm-hmm. Absolute fire product. We did what we said we came out to do. And so there was a massive sense of accomplishment and success. And so although some might say, oh, well, that was an absolute failure. You lost, just south of $1 million. You had to give everything away. You walked away with nothing on there. But I got a $10 million education.
That's priceless.
And that's priceless. And the people that I started with that most people probably would have lost through that, I now had a stronger relationship with.
I think that's what resilience is going to give you, because if you quit at any point in time through that, I mean, you can lose all those relationships that you were building. It's not just you quitting on the business. It's you when you quit on the business, everybody else that you're leading kind of quits with you and on you also, and it can spoil the relationship, because then I feel like true colors are really shown in a situation like that. Two words come to mind when you're telling me these stories is relentless positivity. You just radiate that all the time.
That's it.
And here's the thing, these situations like that are not going to kill you at all. No part of losing any amount of money is ever going to kill you. You're never really going to lose any friends through money. And if you do, it's that frequency just push themselves out of your life because they don't need to be there anyways, And what a story, dude. That's just wild.
Yeah, it was really cool because, I went into it not knowing anything other than information about growing. And I came out of it, and I now know how to frame, run electric, do HVAC. I know how to do blueprints. I know how to do engineering. I know how to design things. I know how to grow a plethora of different plants now. I understand light and photon frequency and humidity and all that stuff. And so I've been able to take that stuff to run that business, to deal with the permits, and to deal with the organizations in charge of the authority, OMMA, OB&DD, right? Communicating with lawyers and different things, right? All of that information I was able to carry with me into my next venture. And so it was a time of preparation for me. Although I thought I was in the mix, it was actually just a time of preparation for me. It was a test for me to see if my spiritual practices, right, if my understanding of quantum physics of the field and singularity, if I could actually stand in that frequency through all of that, what some may see as trauma, I see as beautiful life lessons. I was able to carry all that with me. And so, I come out of that with nothing, but I come out of it with more love and success and loyalty, friendship, and family than I ever had. And then I kind of left from there, and I was like, you know what? I was like, this is the first time in 15 years that I'm not the guy that's in charge to carry everybody on his camelback through the hellacious trenches that you could imagine. And I just decided to just go hop into waiting tables for a little bit, and just do something that I knew took no mind for me to be able to walk in and be able to absolutely thrive in it. And I got to do that for a short period with one of my best friends, my brothers, Dustin, who's on lots of our podcasts and will continue to be. And again, and a lot of people in that time, they're like, you're waiting tables? That's what you're going to do? I'm like, fuck yeah, dude. This shit's fun, dude. This is amazing. And
that's a break almost.
Yeah. And I was making like, $300 a night, 5 days a week. So I was like, yeah, dude, I'm making $1,500 a week waiting tables over here at Texas Roadhouse, baby.
What's interesting, what you said earlier was you left that that failed business with a sense of accomplishment, learned lessons, and deeper relational ties to everybody involved. And I feel like everybody starts a business with that being the end goal of the successful business. Succeeding. That I mean, anybody who wants to start a business or make more money, that's the goal. They feel like it's going to give them more freedom to do whatever they want to do. It's going to give them more freedom to spend time with their kids, to strengthen the relationship and a sense of fulfillment. And it's so interesting that just your paradigm through that extreme, intense, traumatic failure, which you reframed as something of what you just said as a joyous and strengthened everything, you achieved the goal through something that would anybody else would see as a huge, painful, personally from the loss of a dear friend, and the financial and the relationships with your father, worked through that and achieved the ultimate goal of what a successful business would. And it's so, that's just amazing to even hear somebody frame it like that. You walked away with more success than most people would, actually succeeding in a business and getting what they wanted. That's beautiful.
Yeah,
relentless
absolutely.
Positivity. That's the word of the week, guys.
Relentless positivity. You know, and it's funny when you say that, right? It's like, it's because I embodied what I was desiring as if I had already achieved it, right? And so although the illusion around me crumbled and fell away, the vibrational frequency of me having already achieved it was already there and never can leave. Because once you know something, you know what it feels like to achieve it. You can't unknow it. And so that just wasn't the physical reality that vibrated high enough at the vibrational frequency that I embodied, which is why it fell away. And so it then began to open doors for me immediately. You know, I had management opportunities. I had all kinds of pathways open up for me. But I decided, no, you know what? Now's a time of rest. And so I went into waiting tables because I knew I could make easy cash, quick, in and out, boom, boom. And so I went into a state of rest and solitude for a bit, okay? And this was just more time for me to be able to rest the body. Because, you know, when I get going, I mean, I can make this thing move, you know, and this thing can work and it can outperform, you know, 9 out of 10 people, if not 10 out of 10. There's very few situations that I get put in that if I'm there to do a job that I can't do it better than the next guy. And that's another paradigm everyone should work on. And so I came into that period of rest, and I, again, just went back to my practices, right? Went back to my studies, went back to, okay, I don't need to change anything outside of me to achieve what I want. I just have to continue shifting and cultivating the vibrational frequency within me. And then once I reach the vibrational frequency, I've cultivated it, I understand it, I've embodied it, I can feel it. Well, then I knew that everything around me would begin to shape into the physical reality that matches that. And again, my sole purpose from the start was to share love and information and truth about who we are, where we came from, and what our purpose is here in this realm with all of the world. And I just knew that, okay, from here on out, Bashar, we were talking about him the other day, beautiful channeler. Bashar is a 6th-density being who channels through Adara Inca. I would definitely suggest that you check him out. Super funny, cool guy. Has a lot of beautiful information. He talks about this stuff all the time, and I kind of lost my mind track of where I was going there, but I knew that if I just vibrated at the right frequencies, that whenever situations come, so when you learn how to just retract from being the doer all the time, which is what I did over that 3 years and spent $800,000 doing it, I learned how to take myself out of the doership and how to just arrive in the present moment and just be fully embodied in the present moment. And when an opportunity comes, you'll have doorways, right? Different timeline trajectories of opportunities. Whichever one excites you most in that moment is what you should do. And so that's what I started to do. Whatever excited me most in that next moment, I would do. And I got a lot of good time to study, start studying the law, start studying ancient history, start studying information from all over the place. And my father had presented an opportunity to me, and I said, hey, you know what? Yeah, this is what excites me most. I think that we could do a good thing here, and I think that we could expand this. And so I joined him in his dealership. and we opened up a second dealership. From that conversation, 75 days later, here we stand. Which I thought I was a badass in getting things working and moving, but again, my dad holds me correct. And but then look what the car lot did. The car lot brought this absolutely beautiful human being into my life, Nick Dollins.
That's
who's
me.
become a brother, best friend of mine. His beautiful wife Shayna, and absolutely incredible humans now around me that I just enjoy the frequency and vibration of. And now we got this podcast going, and we're in tune. And one of the things is that when you start cultivating these higher frequency vibrations, you're going to notice that things that don't serve you fall away. That's your businesses, your jobs, the environments, the people, friends, unfortunately, family in a lot of cases. They'll fall away, and the ones that do vibrate at your frequency will begin to appear, will begin to show up, and things will just start to happen, and ideas will formulate, and you'll just start moving through them. And if you can stay present in every moment, right, without having any down talk or any voice in there that's telling you can't do it or whatnot, if you can just silence that and you can just be present in the moment, in every moment, you'll begin to learn that you're conversating with yourself. The universe is you incarnate in this physical manifest.
Mm-hmm.
And when you start learning that and you start seeing yourself outside of yourself, right? I don't see this world outside of me as something outside of me. I see it as a reflection of my inner consciousness that is speaking to me all day long. And if there's something that triggers me on the outside, well, I don't look at it as something triggering me. I ask myself, what is this energy showing me? Mm-hmm. Because this is a distortion or imbalance within me, right? The one thing through this whole thing is I never stop doing the work. You got to do the work. You can't just know this information. You can't 100%. Just know that there's a quantum realm that we're in, that we're all part of this energetic field made of source energy, which is the creator, and that we can manifest beautiful outcomes and lives for ourselves and our families and our friends. And as a society, we can really go into a thriving 1,000 years of golden age interstellar civilization with free energy and AI technology that works in companionship and harmony with us. We can't just know all of it. You have to put the pudding in the practice. You got to do it. You got to embody it, right? It's just kind of like, the alcoholic who says, oh, I'm so sorry, please forgive me, I won't drink again, but then the next night goes and drinks again. Mm-hmm. The guy that says, oh, I'm going to quit watching porn because, it's not good for me, but then every night goes back to the phone. Mm-hmm. It's the same thing. That is, we're going through these spiritual awakenings, and a lot of people are going to be in this zone for a little bit. They're going to realize, oh, wait, this information resonates with me, and oh, wait, I am starting to remember who I am and where I came from. Because we talk about in other episodes about how we're veiled when we incarnate here in this world, which basically just means that we have a blindfold put over our consciousness, which means we can't remember who we are, where we come from. Because if we knew that we were eternal spiritual light beings made of God, and that at the snap of a finger or a thought we could manifest anything in any capacity, well, then we wouldn't really learn any of the lessons that we came here to learn. Earth is a school. It's a hard knock school. It's the toughest school in the cosmos. And we come here because it's through the catalyst, it's through the so-called failures, it's through the, the beat downs, both mentally, physically, emotionally, that we're able to rebound and throttle forward into a more beautiful light. I always talk about it. As far as that arrow's pulled back in depression, as far as that arrow's pulled back into poverty, as far as that arrow's pulled back into whatever low vibrational frequency experience that you may be going through, when you realize that you can let it go, you can go just as far in the other direction as what you were in the negative.
Even further.
And because once you get there and you realize, oh, well, you're all energies and you just have to align with the one you wish to be with, you learn how to align with it very easily. Mm-hmm. And so, that's why a lot of it for me, whenever I got out of there, again, I had this framed paradigm that I was stoked, dude. I was just be able to go to sleep the next day. Just to be able to go to sleep the next day was just incredible. And here we are now, about 5 years later, and we're doing the dealerships, and we're about to do the golf carts, and
which I can't wait to get
Me
into.
too,
We'll
dude.
talk about on the podcast once more things start unraveling with it. But huge business ventures coming our way, and we have this podcast where we're reaching thousands of people and helping thousands of people every single week, and none of that would have been possible if either one of us would have gave up and stopped being resilient through all the bullshit and started reframing stuff, taking responsibility for what was around us, and just pushing forward and being positive, man.
Yeah, think about that, Nick. If at any point in time you or I would have not shown up in the capacity we showed up, we would not be here right now on these mics.
It's got goosebumps. Kind of crazy to think about.
That's crazy to think about.
You're welcome, everybody.
Oh, yeah. and with this new business that we've got coming on the plate, right? We're not doing anything, right? We're resonating at a vibrational frequency, and these opportunities are just showing up.
Mm-hmm.
And it's massive. And there's important understanding that as this venture rolls in, that we just continue to observe from neutrality and understand that whatever it is that we see in it and what we think we will be while it's activated, we've already achieved.
Mm-hmm.
And we look forward through this venture and with the podcast to be able to share this story, because the first story you just heard was Josh the doer, right? But now Josh and Nick are just being.
Mm-hmm.
And we are observing our world shift around us as we do it. And we look so forward to sharing every moment with you and every teaching in every capacity that we can, and as many different mindsets and perceptions of the same thing, because one perception is not the total truth. It is your truth. If that's your perception in that moment, that is your truth, and it's very valid and appreciated and not judged in any capacity. But one perception cannot be the total truth.
Mm-hmm.
And it takes all of us together as a collective to awaken and share these ideas and talk about it. And then as we continue to build our collective and our community, we will all begin to resonate and vibrate at the same frequency. And that collective frequency has such a massive impact on the entire world and everything that we see going on around it. A lot of people are like, well, there's nothing I can do in the world and it's going to hell. Well, there is, because the world is simply a reflection of your inside. And so what we're here to help you do is help you to learn how to love yourself on the inside, how to shift and create new programming, which is called a paradigm, okay, in the subconscious mind, to produce things for you when you're not consciously present producing those with consciousness. And so keep following along. It's going to get real interesting, and it's going to get real fun. We're also in talks about creating a Patreon to do some more in-depth practices like breath works, meditations, kind of maybe talk a little bit more openly about what's going on in the world and how collectively together we can shift the vibrational frequency within to manipulate that in a positive way. And a lot of great things coming. If you need a diesel truck, we are the Diesel Daddies.
Yes, sir.
Check our website out, truckcountry7777.com. Mr. Jimmy Long, Truck Country.
Guys, what a great episode. Josh, thanks for sharing your story so authentically, and can't wait to dive in next week and just keep going, man. What a ride. What a ride we're on. Guys, share the show. We love you. Peace out.
Like and share. Love you. Peace.
Night.